Welcome back for the second session. Before we take up the topic for this session, that is environmental pollutants and waste management, we would like to show you a clipping of a film which is CPCB, which has been made by CPCB, and this is on biomedical waste management. This film is also available in your various program study centers and also available for sale. In case you want to view it, you can take it from your program study centers. And this film
can also be downloaded from the CPCB
yeah, you can
website.
also download it from the CPCB website. And this film will be discussed also during your context sessions. So we are showing you only very small part of the film, and we will have a discussion on that part of the film. Can we start the film? I think it was a recap of what we have had in the first session, and plus the rules which are given in details in your module also. Professor Agarwal, would you like to say a few things about the film?
I think this has been an excellent film by the CPCB, which takes you round number of hospitals, what the practices are and what the concern are. And this is more or less a self-explanatory. Sorry, we had to cut down in between because it's a long film, and since it is already there with you, I would request all of you to go through the film. But the point made is very clear that we must read carefully the biomedical waste management and handling rules which were promulgated by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, which are now have to be implemented. It's mandatory. You are liable to be punished in case the State Pollution Control Board finds you wanting in any deficient aspects. So I think we have to be careful and see that as far as possible we do no harm, and we should try to be more using more environment friendly technologies. We should try to, though the options are given to you, but the trend globally is to go for the non-burn technologies, which of course we'll be discussing in future. I think this is in a nutshell I would like to say.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. I would now request Dr. Megha Rathi to tell us something about the environmental pollutants. This is part of your course 1 modules, and environmental pollutants, though it is a very common topic, but there are a lot of concepts and there are a lot of concepts which need to be understood, and there are a lot of misconceptions also which need to be cleared. That's why we have taken this topic for today's discussion, video conferencing. So, Dr. Megha.
Thank you. I welcome you all again to the session, and as Dr. Hu has already said, we'll be discussing on course 1, and especially the environmental pollution that I would be discussing is a part of your block 1, where you're understanding our environment. So basically, what does the environment mean to us? It's our immediate surroundings means our environment. And now we have seen that the environment has been changing with time, and this is because a lot of pollutants have been added to the environment, and that's what it is environmental pollution has resulted out of it. So now, what does pollution mean to us? Can we have the slides, please?
Yes, the slides.
Any undesirable change in the physical, chemical or biological characteristics of our environmental components, that is air, water and soil, that adversely affects various life forms and life support systems of the biosphere. So that's what is pollution. Here biosphere, as all of you know, is a combination of air, water and soil. All the three put together make the biosphere. So if there's any change in the physical, chemical or biological characteristics of these parts, we'll find that there is a change in our environment that results in the pollution. And then what is a pollutant? Any substance that present above a certain concentration threshold in the atmosphere, soil or water, and poses a direct or indirect threat to the well-being of human population. A pollutant is a substance, as it's mentioned, which is present above a certain concentration. We have different gases, we have different ways that have been generated every time, but up to a certain concentration that are present, they might not be called as pollutant, but as soon as they cross a certain threshold of concentration, they result in a lot of pollution, and then that's a definition where we call them as pollutants. And we come across different kinds of pollutants that we come across in our day-to-day lives. And the most common ones that we come across are air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution and radiation pollution. And first we'll take up air pollution. Air pollution, as all of you know, is a pollution that of the air is called as air pollution in a very simple language. There are the air pollution, the sources of air pollution, as you can see something in the picture here, are natural and man-made sources of air pollution. Natural are when the volcanic eruptions occur, you have a lot of pollutants that are generated, and the man-made are to vehicular pollution. You have industries, You have burning of fossil fuels, and indoor air pollution also contributes to it, where we burn a lot of biomass and coal and for cooking especially. So they contribute to a lot of pollution here. And as you can see that there are different primary pollutants, and there are some pollutants which are actually we generate, but then they change their form into secondary pollutants, which maybe are more dangerous than the normal form. When they react with the atmosphere, they change into the secondary pollutants. I'll just briefly touch upon the different kind of air pollutants that you have. Oxides of carbon, oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, gaseous hydrocarbons, photochemical oxidants, chlorofluorocarbons, suspended particulate matters, and heavy metals. They're broadly classified into this. And as you can make out, oxides of carbon are the byproducts of carbon, like the carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. They form the oxides of carbon. These are mostly generated during burning of coal, fuel, and biomass. They mostly generate while you burn all this, then that's where you find oxides of carbon are generated. And then the second category is oxides of sulfur, which includes nitrous oxide and sulfur dioxide. And here these are basically produced by smelting on metal extraction processes. You have petroleum extraction, paper industries, different industries, vehicular also. Vehicular contributes, actually all of them are a part of the vehicular ones.
Oxides of carbon also.
All of them are, but sulfur especially along with the vehicular ones, it's through them. And then you have oxides of nitrogen. Nitrogen oxides, there again vehicular pollution is one of the major sources, but here one of the more major sources are the fertilizer industries. Fertilizers contribute to a lot of oxides of nitrogen, and then these oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, they go into the atmosphere, they react, and in turn they also get back to us in form of acid rains. So they mix with the atmosphere, and you have acid rains which get to us soil, and then again into food cycle and get into us. So everything, if you see, it's like a chain. Once we are the ones who are the major polluters, and it's getting back to us. So now I guess it's our responsibility to understand that we are the ones who have generated it, and we are the ones who need to curtail it as well. Gaseous hydrocarbons, they again generated through burning of fuels, mostly burning of fuels, and photochemical oxidants. These are generated by chemical reactions, photochemical reactions within the atmosphere. Chlorofluorocarbons, they've really been talked about nowadays quite a bit, is the cooling agents, and especially a lot of them are used as cooling agents. In the household, we use them in air conditioners and the refrigerators. Suspended particulate matters, these are generated by vehicular pollutions. A lot of vehicular pollutions, they generate suspended particulate matters. This problem more is seen especially in the winters in this form of smog, when all of us encounter this, and so it's a lot of them are generated especially. And I think so step that we're changing to CNG, and these kind of steps by the government and by individuals will help us reduce the pollution level. And heavy metals, this you'll also read a lot about in your course material. Especially lead and mercury are the ones which lead to a lot of air pollutants. Lead, especially vehicular pollutants in petrol. Nowadays, though we have lead-free petrol, but still lead is there in the atmosphere, and major sources are vehicles again. So this is briefly on the air pollutants. And now this is on mercury pollution. The next slide here is on mercury pollution. Mercury is a heavy metal, as I just told, and there are different sources of mercury, and one of the major sources of mercury are the hospitals and the industries. Hospitals, especially as Dr. Kuba has already talked about, are the blood pressure instruments, the thermometers, you have the lamps, certain fluorescent lamps which are used, the batteries. These all generate a lot of mercury, and mercury is one such metal which remains in the atmosphere in any form. Maybe it's a gaseous form or a liquid form, and it enters our body through water and air. So we need to be very careful, especially while we are here. All of us are here because of the cause of environment that has got us together. And in the hospitals, where we talk not only about the solid waste, liquid waste, but also a lot on heavy metal management. So we need to be sure that we are not the ones who are generating mercury pollution. As Dr. Kuba said, that mercury is it enters into our body as through water or through air, and it affects our systems and the neural systems, and I think so Dr. Kuba can brief us more on that later on. The nervous systems and the nephrosystems, and all of them are affected. And
basically they cannot be excreted out from the body also, so they get
yeah.
accumulated in the body.
Yeah.
The kidney is not able to excrete
Yeah.
it, and so it becomes toxic.
Yeah, and it also does not follow the blood-brain barrier basically, so it can easily pass through the placenta into the fetus, and it can go into the brain. So it's really a very dangerous heavy metal which needs to be contained within the healthcare facility. It should not go into the atmosphere or into the drains.
I think more dangerous is that the knowledge about it is not available. People are not aware that mercury can cause such a lot of pollution. If a thermometer breaks, it's just brushed away or cleaned away along with the other waste. So that is, I think, also very important.
So that's where, as Dr. Kuba just touched upon it, so I would just briefly tell you that you go through the material, you'll get to know more on how to manage mercury within the hospitals. But it's very important that if you break a thermometer or if mercury leaks out of a blood pressure instrument, just don't use your bare hands, because it could also get into your body through the skin. Take a pair of gloves, and rather 2 pairs of gloves, and take a paper or a syringe, suck it into a syringe and store it into a bottle containing some water so that it does not evaporate, and please hand it over to your store so that it can further be sent to the suppliers and reused, rather than being thrown out as general waste and getting into a general waste stream then. So this was on mercury. And then on dioxins, we'll talk on dioxins. Dioxins are the byproducts of incineration. We have been talking about incineration, but further down in your course 2, when we discuss course 2, we'll talk more on the byproduct incineration and other treatment technologies such as autoclave and microwave, which are non-burn technologies, and incineration, which is a burn technology. And in case if you burn plastics, especially the polyvinyl chlorides containing plastics, they generate a lot of dioxins, and dioxins and these PVCs are found in especially the blood bags, urine bags. Many of the hospital the products that are used in the hospitals have PVC, and while burning them we produce dioxins, because the incinerators at times are not equipped to trap dioxins. So that's where it's important that all of us switch over to non-burn technologies. And as dioxins, they enter into the humans, they are potent carcinogens, and they affect the reproductive system, they spoil the endocrine system. There's so much that will be talked about the dioxins. In your course, block 3 in course 1 has a special unit dedicated on this chemical pollutants, and so you'll see a lot on that. So I think so we can discuss it later on. And then it's on water pollution. This is the second kind of pollution after air pollution that we'll discuss on. There are different sources of different kinds of sources of water pollution. Biological, where the virus, bacteria, protozoas and worms, they form the biological part of the water, water pollution, and we come across different diseases like cholera and different dysenteries and choleras, which are caused by these bacteria and viruses. And then it's the chemical pollution that's there in the water, because the water, as all of us know, is really I mean, it's we use it in day-to-day life for bathing, for drinking, for different activities. And a very important aspect of water is that it is a very good solvent. It just dissolves different things into it very easily. And here similarly the different chemicals, like the inorganic chemical, in the ionic form, they just dissolve into the water, and that's how we produce a lot of chemical pollution, and this again comes from different industries and also hospitals. Hospitals might be a very minor source of water pollution, but still we are contributing to a lot of water pollution in terms of biological water pollution, and in chemical also, where a lot of drugs and the antibiotics are being disposed of. And when talking about industries, all industries use water, especially the tanneries and the refineries. All
Again,
of
the
them,
problem
yeah.
I think is that it is infectious.
Yes.
So again, when we dispose it without treating it, so then all the waste becomes
Yeah.
infectious. So though we may be contributing a very small amount, but that contribution becomes very huge because it is infectious.
Yes. So it is definitely it's our responsibility that we treat water while we are disposing it off from the hospitals, and this is done by chemical disinfection. You have to do chemical disinfection, and then you make sure that you test the water, that there are no bacteria or viruses that are being discharged out of the hospital. So it's important that in the hospitals, we come across in India in the hospitals where we talk about lot on solid waste management, but when it comes to water, there's little that's been done up till now in India. So I think so we need to make sure that we contribute towards curtailing the water pollution as well, because it is a non-point source. It just would not stay next to your hospital, but it would just pass through the streams, into the rivers, into the oceans, and it just spreads across. So we're just manifesting and just increasing the amount of pollution that way. And then we would talk about the organic agents. These are the sewage that we have, the animal waste, the sewage waste that's there, that's being disposed of here as organic agents, and then the radioactive substances. There are a lot of radioactive substances that have been put into the water stream, and while we're doing a lot of ore extraction of radioactive metals, especially contaminate a lot of water that time. And physical, then the third category is the physical agents, which include suspended solids, and here it's the soil erosions, the floods and all that lead to this, and heat, where we have the thermal power plants where we're generating electricity, and in return we don't give much to the water, but a lot of heat, which spoils the ecosystem of the water. So that's where we're contributing. That's how we contribute to the water pollution, because the ecosystem is spoiled and then it's difficult to get it back to normal. Noise pollution, all of us come across noise pollution into our daily day-to-day life. Traffic being one of the major sources, honking of horns and just constant traffic, aircrafts, construction work, industries, where there are different machineries that have been used, which contribute to a lot of noise pollution. So I think so we need to curtail the noise pollution in the industries and around the traffic. We need to make sure that we plant a lot of trees, because we've seen that trees have a lot of capacity, and they could just contain a lot of noise into them, especially. And the traffic, we need to make sure that we educate each other, and we don't make a lot of noise while in the roads. And then the other kind of pollution is, they're different now. It's really the talk of the day, I should say, is global warming. We have seen that it's a threat to the mankind, with the rising temperatures all across the world, the melting glaciers, the rising temperatures, and we've seen that the greenhouse gases, which were seen as a boon to the mankind, because they would not let different harmful gases to enter the earth, and in the meanwhile also maintain the temperature of the earth. But as the industrialization has increased, we have seen that there's greenhouse gases, the emission of the greenhouse gases has increased into our day-to-day lives. And
you can elaborate which are the greenhouse gases?
Yeah, greenhouse gases, I would elaborate. Methane is one very important one, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and nitrous oxide. These are the main greenhouse gases that we're going to that are there.
And how they have an effect, like how do they contain the how do they raise the temperature?
Yeah,
How do they contribute to global
yeah.
warming?
As I was saying that the industrialization, with the industrialization, before pre-industrialization, Earth's normal temperature is supposed to be less than 15 degrees centigrade, but with time, what has happened is with industrialization, the temperature has increased very much, and now we've come across the temperatures are increased of more than 3 degrees centigrade, and the reason is that these gases are emitted into the atmosphere, and then they just stay there, and the concentration, as I said earlier, the pollutant, they are now as a part, they are pollutants now, rather than, because they have crossed the threshold level as what was specified earlier, and now it's been, if you can also go through the study material which has specifically mentioned there that the carbon dioxides and the carbon monoxides, they've around more than 15% increase in the emissions of carbon dioxide since the time of industrialization, which has contributed to it.
Yeah, so actually what happens is that this is the shorter wavelengths which they allow.
Yes.
The sun, the rays which are coming from the sun, the heat rays, they are of short wavelengths, so they come inside to the earth, they reach the earth,
But they are not being emitted back.
the emitted back rays are of longer
Longer
wavelengths, and they are not allowed to go and escape into the atmosphere,
because
so they
of
remain.
this, because these
the
gases, they form a jacket, and as a jacket, so they're not, they just cannot emit outside the way they were doing earlier, because this is just increasing, the jacket is just increasing day by day. The heat is increasing. That's the reason why the heat is increasing here. And the other thing is ozone hole. The ozone was ozone O3, which is there at the stratosphere. It's at above the atmosphere level, which is there to avoid the ultraviolet rays to enter the earth. But what's happening is there's an ozone hole that's been formed, and this ozone hole is through the ozone hole there's a lot of ultraviolet rays that are escaping and entering into the earth. So that's how I think so the atmosphere of the earth is just changing, and now it's important that we all of us put an effort together. And one important thing is deforestation that has led to all of this, and it's almost 7.5 million hectares of land that has been devastated. The forest land have been devastated each year. So that's where a lot of carbon dioxide was utilized earlier. Now it's just been emitted into the atmosphere. So this was on the pollutants, and now we just talk briefly upon the waste management, because we need some time for discussion as well. So I just finish it off. Waste management, we've already talked about healthcare waste management. This is briefly talking about on the general waste management, not only in the hospitals but outside the hospital, in our homes, in the industries. How do we do waste management? Waste categories, all of us could just we can just talk about garbage, rubbish, ashes. These are the different waste categories that are there, and it's basically, you can divide it into biodegradable and degradable for your convenience, and the sources are different sources. And you can see the last source here is the hospital, which though is only 1% of the entire waste stream that has been generated. Hospital generates only 1% of the entire municipal waste stream, but due to its potent and the toxic nature, it has been identified as the second most hazardous waste by the Basel Convention. So we should understand why it is so important for us to manage healthcare waste.
And besides, when we see the sources, I think all these sources are both biodegradable and non-biodegradable mixed in them. So segregation everywhere is important. It's not just in healthcare, everywhere it is important.
And it starts, as every good thing starts from home, so I'd suggest that all of us do it from our homes, where we segregate the biodegradable and the degradable ones, non-biodegradable ones. And then the principles of waste management, as Dr. Guba has just touched upon, remains the same everywhere, be it home, industries or the hospitals. If we want a good waste management, we need to follow these practices: segregation at source, then proper collection and storage, transportation, in-house transportation, and outside the facilities, the healthcare facilities or the industries, we need to make sure that the transportation is secure and safe, not that while transporting waste we spill waste all over. And then finally, the treatment and disposal options. We need to choose just treatment and disposal options which are eco-friendly, which do not produce pollution rather than curtailing pollution. Like incineration should discourage. We should go for alternate technologies. We should go for a lot of biodegradable stuff and vermicomposting, and also biomass energy generation. And then the golden 4R principle that is always there with us: reduce, recycle, recover and reuse. So we need to reuse. All of us need to follow this principle.
I think this is possible only if we do segregation, because if we don't do segregation, we can't reuse or recycle. I think another very important point, though it doesn't come in the principles of waste management, but I think there is one thing that is very important, is the alternative use of the resources.
Yes.
That is one thing which will reduce the waste which is
Yeah,
generated
that's
itself.
why reusing it.
So if we use, for example, the commonest example is using CNG or compressed natural gas instead of petrol. So you use an alternative resource which doesn't cause waste. So then you don't require to actually manage the waste itself, because it's not produced.
Yes,
So I
that's
think
very
that's
important.
very important.
So that's actually true for everything. Using CNG and using the solar heating systems.
Yeah.
If we switch over to such renewable energy sources, I guess that should be very important.
Even for power production, the
Yeah.
hydroelectric power instead of the thermal power stations. So
Yeah.
that is also more important.
So we use more of renewable energy sources which are readily available for us, and we can use them anytime. And then, as we've already talked upon, is solid waste management. How do we manage solid waste? We just segregation. It's only on segregating into biodegradable, non-biodegradable. Then biodegradable could be very well composted, and non-biodegradable could go for recycling and recovery. And where metal, plastics, paper make a major component of the non-biodegradable ones. And the next slide is just on the life cycle of waste. We generate waste, it comes back to us. How do we manage waste? So it may be the industry or the agriculture, wherever it is, we produce, utilize, generate, dispose, collect, segregate and transport. And as Dr. Kuba rightly said, it's using it back. So it should not be thrown out just as waste, but it should be used back by us in some form or the other. Waste for one should be a resource for others. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Megha. I think that was very enlightening and a thought-provoking presentation also, because I think it is required that all of us now should rethink how the minute we try to use a resource, that whether we are going to generate a waste, and if we are going to generate the waste, how we are going to manage it. So I think that's very important. And another very important issue that she has mentioned is that it is right from our home that we have to start it. It is right in our attitude that we have to build up this waste management. It is not that we have to manage waste which is produced by somebody else. It is we ourselves, we have to reduce the production of waste, and we have to manage it by segregation and proper disposal. So I think this is very important, and I would thank her for sparing her time and coming for the presentation. Again, I would just like to give one or two reminders to the students. First is that we are going to have the next teleconferencing on 7th of September, and the time is the morning session, that is from 11 AM to 1:45 PM. And second is that you have to fill in your examination form from 1st of September to 30th of September, and the forms are available with the regional directors and will be available on the website also soon. So these are 2 points, and again, as Dr. Agarwal had also specified, that kindly contact your program in charges for the contact spells which are to be taking place. Some of them will be scheduled probably in August, and some places they may be scheduled in September. It is important also for you to interact actively with your counselors to be able to chalk out the first select the topic and then chalk out the strategies of how to manage, how to go about your project. So with all that, I would just like to wish all of you best of luck, and you can always contact us whenever you feel that there is any problem. Thank you.